Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larby.
Hey guys, it is Sarah Larby here today, and you are listening to another episode of Where Should I Invest? I am excited for today's guest, Adrian Pannozzo. We talk about joint ventures, BRRRRing, my favorite strategy. He's done a ton of those, and how to refinance all or most of your money out for an ideal BRRRR deal. But before we get into that, I've also got a special guest. I think this is the first time I'm bringing somebody in to do the intro with me. I have my niece who is here with me for the week, and I'm super excited. She's getting very interested in real estate investing, so I thought I'd bring her on, and you guys can get to meet Patience. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Good. So you're reading a really cool book right now. One of our favorites. What's the book that you're reading these days?
Today I've been reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
That's awesome. So you started reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it sounds like, what do you think so far of that book?
Well, I think it's been helping me learn a lot more about real estate. It's been helping me learn that school doesn't teach you a lot of this. It teaches you how to be an employee, not an employer. Yeah,
that's very true. Now, obviously, we've known you since you were pretty much born. What are your thoughts about real estate just overall? And actually, before we go into that, how old are you?
I am 12 years old.
You're 12. Awesome. So what do you think about real estate and real estate investing in general?
Well, I think that real estate is the best investment overall because there's many reasons why. Number one, if you're doing on the side, it could be the best way to fall back on. Also, doing real estate is probably the best way to retire early from your other job.
That's cool. There are good insights. Now, what do you want to do when you're older? What's your ideal job?
Well, when I'm older, I want to be a veterinarian, but I also want to own my own clinic. But first, I have to go through university. So during my time in university, I will be renting out a home that I will own. It will probably have at least 6 bedrooms, and I will be renting out from people from my university.
That's awesome. Cool. So it's really inspiring. I mean, not all kids your age think like this, so early on. What is it that you think allows you to be interested in this kind of stuff?
Well, first, my Aunt Sarah, because she has taught me a lot, and she's actually made me more interested in this. And also that it's good learning, mm-hmm. and you can learn lots. And I think it'd just be a really way to start my future.
That is cool. So, what do you do these days in school? Because right now you guys are doing online learning. Like, what kind of things are you learning in school? Anything about business or any of that?
No, we're not learning anything. We're learning math. We're learning how to write poetry. Okay. And in French, we're just learning how to make posters about different villages.
Oh, interesting. And what do I get you to do when you come over?
Well, you get me to read my book. You get me to help around the house. And you help me learn more about real estate. That's
cool. Do you enjoy it, or does it feel like a chore?
Oh, I love it.
Nice.
Like, I'm not even lying. This is so much fun. That's another reason why I wanted to come here, because I will learn so much more.
Awesome. Patience, thank you so much for being part of our intro and our guest. And it is really cool. Actually, I admire you because I did not think like this when I was 12 years old, where, I think it was probably when I was only 24, 25 that I started thinking about, real estate or just investing. So it is really cool to see at 12 years old that you're already thinking like this. And thanks for being on the show.
No, thank you.
So that was my niece, Patience. I mean, it is really cool to see, even just talking about it, being able to influence young people to start thinking outside the box. So I am super excited that, she's she's interested in it and seeing the bigger picture, because this is not the stuff that they teach us in school. So I hope you guys enjoy this podcast with Adrian Pannozzo, and don't forget the BRRRR Freedom Community. You can still access it. It is month to month, 2 calls a month until the end of the year. Go to sarahlarby.com, BRRRR Freedom Community, and you will get the details. And now let's bring in Adrian. Adrian, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you, Sarah?
Good. I'm excited to have you on. Right before we were talking about cottages, we might circle back on that. But for those that may not know who Adrian Pannozzo is, give us an overview of what it is that you do, and when it comes to real estate investing, what is your strategy?
Yeah, thanks. So I started investing in real estate 9-10 years ago now, and I was a police officer at that time, working in the GTA, and my real estate investments, essentially buying predominantly in the city of Hamilton, enabled me to financially retire early after completing 21 years of service, and focus strictly being a full-time investor, essentially. So been at the game with respect to investing now for a total of 9-10 years, and we now own, myself and my joint venture partners, we're now at 54 multifamily homes, which is equivalent to just over 207 doors.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's been quite a run. It's been quite a wild run, and things for us really took off in 2017 when the market was on fire and everybody wanted to get into the market. So things kind of exploded us in 2017, and that's when I left the police department. So it's been about 3.5 years now that I've left policing and focused predominantly on being a full-time investor and joint venture partnerships.
So you joint venture with multifamily, like do you BRRRR them, or are they more buy and hold multis, or how is that all working out?
Yeah, good question. So we BRRRR, and we're more generational wealth, long-term wealth with respect to real estate. So we don't flip them. We obviously buy distressed, and then being in the market, and as long as we have, our analysis is pretty tight with respect to, if we buy it at this much and we put in this much, this is what the end of the rainbow will show us. And we actually started a company doing that, Executive Capital, where we predominantly just look for joint venture partnerships and use our expertise to help people who don't have the knowledge, the time, the experience to have a BRRRR that essentially is going to produce 95-100% return on investment.
Okay. So is it fair to assume that like they bring the money, they hold the financing, you essentially find the property, do the legwork on, managing the renovations, if there's any renovations to do, and managing the property manager that manage the tenants?
Exactly. I think that's pretty well hit the nail on the head. They're bringing the capital and they're able to qualify for the lending component. And then we are facilitating, obviously finding that awesome, distressed property, and then facilitating the renovations through our, we actually own our own construction company as well. So we facilitate those renos through our construction company, and then ultimately our analysis will show, here's our projected refinance amount, which equates to extracting most, if not all, of our capital at the refinance portion.
So at the first refinance, so after you refinance, let's just say 3 or 6 months out, are you running the numbers based on something where you're paying back all of your holding, all your rental costs, and all your down payment as well? So like a BRRRR in one, which is what I call it.
Correct. Yeah.
Perfect BRRRR.
Yeah, exactly. That's our analysis. And again, just the expertise of being in the market as long as we've had, and we've done, I don't know, probably 40 plus BRRRRs over the span of our career. So our analysis will show, again, yes, we're able to extract our 20% down payment, our carrying and holding costs, and ultimately our renovation costs that we injected into the project.
I mean, that's hard to do, right? Because when you're talking about the BRRRR strategy, and I've been doing it as well, like, yes, the burn ones happen, but very common you're leaving something, right? Whether it's like 20 grand of your original 150 as an example. There's, I find that to get the perfect one in this market today, and I mean, let's talk about it. You can definitely give me your point of view on it, but it's hard to do where you're getting everything back and then making profit. Sometimes I find that there might be 10 or 20K or something left in that deal from originally. But what's your take on that?
I don't want to sound pompous, but we're batting 99% about getting all of our capital out. But that being said, like you made a good point, if you're leaving 10 or 20K in a house that just refinanced for 900,000, that's an incredible return on investment regardless. Even if you leave 50K in on a house that you bought at 500 and now you've refinanced for, let's just say 900 or 850, and you have that asset, that acquisition that now you have 30 grand in, it's still incredible return on your money, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ultimately.
I mean, because at the end of the day, you look at the cash flow, the mortgage pay down, the appreciation, like moving forward once you've recouped your money. And so if you've got, let's just call it 20K left in the deal, but your mortgage pay down is $7,000 a year, on principal, your cash flow is X. I mean, you're likely, getting that insane return on that 20K that you have left once you've pulled everything out, as an example, right?
Absolutely. And that's why I say, to a lot of people we work with, our goal, obviously, our ultimate goal is to extract every single dime that we injected into the project right from the get-go. Should we happen to leave, like you said, 10, 20, 30K, here's what the return still looks like, which is still incredible return in comparison to, let's just say, buying turnkey or some other investment avenue that you may be thinking of.
Yeah. So where are these? Are these in Hamilton, the GTA? Like, where are most of the properties that you're buying?
Hamilton.
Okay. So all Hamilton?
Pretty much 99% are all Hamilton. And, I think we're going to start looking at other market centers, i.e. Kitchener-Waterloo, Brantford is definitely on the radar as well and whatnot, London. But right now, if I were to say, where's my expertise in getting these kind of results, definitely Hamilton.
Okay. And now, are these on market, like on MLS, or are you finding the deals some other method?
Both, on and off market. So our reputation kind of has grown within the Hamilton Market Center. So a lot of different investors will call us and basically say, hey, I'm ready to throw in the towel. I don't want to be a landlord anymore. Or I heard, my friend is selling his triplex or fourplex. So off market stuff like that. We also have an inside sales team that is consistently cold calling and door knocking. So we're getting leads that way. And obviously, lastly, just like everybody else, we're interested in stuff that's on the market as well, if the numbers are right.
Okay, awesome. That's good. So you're keeping all your options open and looking for that deal in many avenues. That's awesome. To go back, and for some people that may or may not know, I don't fully always advertise it, but my boyfriend right now is still working as a police officer. And he's not into real estate, right? Like he supports me and he's not as passionate as I think you were. And I think that's going to be part of it too, is, he probably, if he retires, he's probably not going to do, I shouldn't say a whole lot, but it's going to be like his martial arts or different things. Right. So when you retired, because at the end of the day, like there is a pension that comes with being a police officer that you get after a certain amount of years, which, is a pretty, good amount. Like how did you handle that? So for people with pensions that are thinking, okay, I could quit or I could leave, what did you do with your pension? Did you just take a lower amount as an example? Did you cash it out and reinvest it in, maybe mortgages or something? Like, are you able to share what you did with that?
Yeah, for sure. So I hired, with respect to my pension, yes, I took an early buyout. Essentially, because I didn't complete my typical 30 years on the job. I completed 21. So obviously I had a reduced payout for example, I hired, because obviously that money's taxable, right? So you're going to get this big lump sum, you know, let's say it's $1 million. You're going to get $1 million as your payout after 21 years of policing. And now that's taxable. So obviously hiring the right person with respect to how much should you put in RSPs, how much should you put in a LIRA account, how much are they holding here and there and whatnot. It's really an area that I think you need professional help with to make the right decisions, so you avoid paying as much tax as possible. So right now that money essentially, for the most part, is all in different pockets. There is a small amount of money that I did keep free and clear to reinvest in real estate, but the bulk of it is invested in different portfolios, if you will.
Right. So essentially you took the cash payments that you could use to reinvest yourself.
Correct. Yeah.
Rather than that ongoing, you know, annual or monthly pay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's interesting. I mean, you know, there's probably some, I will say, you know, pensions, there's not many professions that still have pensions, the ones that you have as I think it's a defined benefit, right? Versus a defined contribution. And I think the big difference is like at the end of like somebody like a police officer, they get a certain amount per year, regardless of how they had invested it, you know, along the way. Defined contribution is probably more common in the business realm today, where you actually make contributions and your money grows, but it's not like you're guaranteeing yourself a salary per se upon retirement. I think that's a big difference there. And I'm sure there's lots of other differences too.
And I think I was in that position because the decisions I made with my real estate investments ultimately produced me a certain amount of cash flow a month that I live on. And I've been able to use that cash flow to make that decision, saying, yes, you know what, I'm ready to leave a job that I loved. I really, really enjoyed being a police officer. And, you know, it was a really, really good go. I did well. I got so much experience working in so many different pockets of the police department. But my cash flow now enabled me to leave, and I live off cash flow essentially. So the money, the bulk money I got from my payout, essentially I can keep in that nest egg for, you know, when I'm 55 or 60 or whatever. I don't really need it at the moment at all.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good insight. So, you know, before we started recording, we were talking about cottage rentals and cottages, and, you know, you were mentioning that you have one as well that you Airbnb. Can you share a little bit about how you got into the cottage property and, you know, what your strategy is?
Yeah, so it was, I grew up in this certain area. My parents would rent a cottage every year, and it's on Georgian Bay, so in the north end, between, let's just say, Midland and Wasaga. And every year we went up every summer, and my parents couldn't afford to buy a cottage, so we rented one religiously on the same stretch of road that ultimately we bought a cottage on. So we used essentially the proceeds from cash flow and refinancing one of our properties. We used that equity to reinvest it in a childhood dream that I had, basically saying, you know, when I grow up, I want to buy a cottage on this stretch of beach. And ultimately, that's exactly what I did. And again, going back to the choices I made with real estate investing, there's no way I could have ever done that and been able to afford that without the real estate investing component that enabled me to financially afford it. So now we Airbnb it to help pay for the expenses, obviously. And, you know, prime time, summertime, like we were discussing your cottage and our cottage, prime time, summertime, we're charging, I think we're getting, give or take, $5,800 a week, prime time. Mortgage payment is like $3,500 a month. So there is some cash flow there as well. Obviously, our goal with renting it was just to cover the expenses.
Right.
So we rented enough just to essentially cover our expenses for the year, with respect to the mortgage and hydro and stuff like that.
And you can enjoy it in between.
What's that?
And you can enjoy it in between, right? It's like
In
your
between,
cottage that
sure.
other people are paying for you to be able to enjoy with your family and your friends.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better. So at the end of the day, you know, we've had it for about a year and a half now. I want to say it's probably up since COVID, and everybody wants a cottage now and head north. It's probably up 150 grand since we bought it. Again, another example of, you know, time in the market and not necessarily timing the market. So long-term wealth, we're up 150K, you know, in a year and a half. Where do you see those kind of returns?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Cottage rental like market right now is insane, but you look everywhere else and it's still insane. At some point, it's going to take a bit of a slowdown, and there's not going to be as much you know, activity per se. Usually, I find most of my deals between like November and February. A lot of estate sales and just more motivation during those months because people plan to sell in the spring so that like they can move in the summer or whatnot. But yeah, it's we're going into a good season for hopefully for buying some good deals. So speaking of deals, can you walk us through like maybe the last one that you purchased, just as like an overview of like what the numbers looked like, how much you bought it for, reno cost, holding cost, refi amounts,
Yeah.
and how your JV split worked?
I have something here. Give me 1 second, just so I can reference.
Sure.
One of our most recent ones.
And also how you came across that deal too would be good.
Great. So this was just before COVID. Prices, again, now we can touch on that later if you want, but prices since COVID first came out back in March, April, whatnot, prices since then have like gone crazy. I don't know where you're looking and where you prefer to invest, but in Hamilton, since COVID, I would say, you know, since March to now, I would say prices are up at least $80,000, at least in multifamilies from what I'm seeing and what we have our eye on. Anyhow, so we bought this property, 4 self-contained units, distressed for $500,000. Again, this is pre-COVID. You're never going to get this at $500,000 now. It was on the market, and we snagged it pretty quick. So obviously, 20% down of 500,000 is 100,000. So we have a first mortgage of 400. We spent a total of $180,000 in renovations.
For 4 units.
For 4 units. So, and it was pretty well, we're talking everything: kitchens, bathrooms, flooring, lighting, electrical, plumbing, windows, all brand new windows, quite extensive renovations. 7 months later, we forced appreciation. So now the property got appraised for $894,000. 7 months. So we took it from 5 to 894.
That's awesome.
So working the numbers backwards, ultimately, I'll just cut to the chase. Ultimately, this particular project, we extracted all of our capital with the new appraised value, plus we had a surplus of $10,200.
Right. So
property,
after you paid back your reno and your holding costs and everything else.
Right. So property, essentially we got paid $10,000 for buying this house and renovating it. And ultimately this property cash flows $1,250 a month. So no capital in, $1,250 a month, positive cash flow. That's after obviously expenses and property management, and not including debt pay down, appreciation, so on and so forth. So again, like
it's an infinity rate of return.
infinite rate of return. Yeah.
So how is the JV split? Is it a 50-50 or do you have another arrangement with most of your JVs?
50-50. Yeah.
And do they do the first refi, you pay them back first, and then profits once they're made whole essentially is split 50-50
Correct.
from there onwards?
Yeah.
How long do you typically hold properties for?
We ask when we do get into business with somebody, we're typically asking for a minimum of 5 years as far as a commitment. Obviously, if something drastic happens and life changes drastically, and we can definitely negotiate an earlier sell. But typically, it's a 5-year commitment, and on top of that, we typically don't. Like a lot of our partnerships, again, we have no capital in, we're cash flowing, we have debt pay down. Realistically, there's really no reason to sell. And obviously, as you already know, the BRRRR strategy, it's tax-free. The only time you're paying tax is obviously when you sell it. So if we have all these wonderful things that are happening with this property, there's really no benefit unless, again, life changes and you just want to cash in. There's really no extreme benefit to sell it.
Okay.
So.
No, some good insights for sure. I mean, you've done, like you said, 50 and change of these JVs, so you've got a great amount of experience. Now, if somebody comes to you and says, I want a JV, like, is there like a minimum requirement of like cash or financing ability that, they need to have in order to JV? Is that and is that a discussion that you have, initially with them? And is there anything else that you require?
Yeah, so good question. I'll tell you on average, every project's different, obviously. But I would say on average, what we're getting into, and I really love the fourplexes because cash flow, again, is like $1,200-1,300 a month at the end of the day. So I can comment on a fourplex. And again, our renos are pretty deep because we're buying pretty distressed properties. I would say on average, $250,000 is what they need access to, whether it's coming from a home equity line, a line of credit, savings, RSPs, wherever it's coming from. I would say on average $250,000, and that would cover the down payment, and the rentals.
Okay. Well, I'm guessing it's not RSPs because they're likely going to be on title, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So just maybe like a tax-free savings account that they want to reuse, but
Yeah.
HELOCs are a good option, or just cash. So essentially $250K, and they need to qualify. Like, do you send them through a mortgage broker to get qualification first? Like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, we put them in touch with one of our preferred mortgage brokers that we work with, and they'll go through the qualifying, jump through the hoops, and then ultimately we'll get the green light and say, okay. I mean, if we're buying, like I said, stuff now, distressed 4 units, you're anywhere between 550 and 600,000. The market is really, really hot right now. It's a seller's market. So, I mean, if you're buying it at 550, already you're 20% down, then you got to think of now you need the money to renovate all this stuff. So we want to be refinancing, mid 900s. So again, it'd be important to tell your mortgage broker, obviously the projection, yes, we're looking at north of 900,000 on a refi. Do I qualify
For that amount? Exactly. Not the lower amount to purchase, because then on the refi, you're not going to be able to pull the money back out.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. So what's next for you? I mean, you're clearly really successful at what you currently do. Do you have any plans, either to accelerate the business or to slow down, or like, what's your forecast on that?
Yeah. So I think, ultimately the plan is to sip a margarita in the Caribbean and log in on my laptop and check up on all my stuff and have a team in place here that takes care of everything. But right now I still love what I do. I'm still young. I'm still energetic. I think we've built a really good brand and a really good strategy. So I still have a few years left that I really want to continue to crush it before I totally disappear to the Bahamas, so to speak. Yeah, so I'm still really engaged with my joint venture partners. We're still really proactively looking for properties. Is there an end in sight? Absolutely. Probably not for at least 3 years, I would say. I can still keep this momentum going, and then ultimately, like I said, take off for the winter months somewhere and enjoy the warmth, and then
That's the
we
dream,
spend
right?
summers at the cottage, and what's that saying? Live life on your own terms.
Yeah, your life, your terms, I suppose, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's good foresight there. And have you ever, do you keep in touch with your fellow, prior police officer colleagues, and are they interested in like following your footsteps or getting into real estate, or do they think you're crazy?
Yes, I keep in touch with them. I miss the kind of the camaraderie of the police department. Obviously, this business is a whole different kind of line of work, but yeah, I miss the guys. I do keep in touch with them. There's one thing about police officers, you probably know from your boyfriend or whatnot. They're very skeptical, and they don't trust a lot of people because just of the nature of their job and always dealing with negativity in their job. But I've been able to bridge the gap just having the police connection where, hey, like full transparency, look at me and look what I've done. I'll ask me for any, piece of paper I can prove to you that this is all legit. So I've been able to bridge the gap with quite a few of them who now are joint venture partners. But some, cops, no matter what you tell them, they'll always just think, no, I don't trust, or whatnot. So you can only work with so many people regardless.
Yeah, I mean, chances are they probably were called to some type of, tenant landlord call at some point in their career.
Yeah, and they see, the worst of the worst tenants, which obviously is not our kind of tenant profile. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But no, I do keep in touch, and I have joint ventured with quite a few of them now, who have kind of jumped on the train and said, yeah, let's go.
Very cool. Awesome. Adrian, we are going to go to the next part of the podcast, which is our lightning round. I'm going to ask you a series of 5 questions. You're going to give me the first answer that comes to mind. Are you ready?
I don't like when you do this, but yeah, go ahead.
All right. Question number 1. What is your favorite real estate investing book ever?
I got it right here, actually. 1 second. It's called The 4-Hour Work Week.
The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Great book. I've committed to myself that I'm going to read that once a year.
Yeah, I love it. I always read it every time I go away on vacation. Hasn't been lately, but when I go away on vacation on a plane, I always bring it and just read it on the plane there and back twice. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's funny. I brought it to my last trip to the Dominican, and I was reading it on the beach there too. But every time you read it, it's like more stuff clicks, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Number 2, I don't know if you are a podcast listener, but what podcast is your favorite podcast that you listen to the most?
I have 3. Obviously, The Right Club. I have listened to quite extensively, actually, my business partner, Breakthrough Real Estate Investing Podcast with Rob Drake and Sandy McKay. And lastly, I like Andrew Hines' podcast as well. Obviously, he's a wealth of knowledge as well, but that I would say, obviously, yourself with The Right Club, Breakthrough Real Estate Investing, and Andrew Hines.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, great podcasts. Number 3, what do you do for fun when it's not real estate?
Love to work out. Love to go out for dinners. Love to be at the cottage and stare at the water and sip champagne.
Okay. Awesome.
Prosecco, actually. Prosecco.
There you go. Number 4, if you lost all of your money, all your assets tomorrow, how would you start again?
That's a really good question. How would I start again? I would use my experience and knowledge in real estate and convince people again to partner with me, as I'm a wealth of experience and knowledge and can make them super successful long-term wealth in real estate.
All right. And final question number 5. If somebody has $50,000, that's all they have, but they want to get started, how would you recommend that they do so?
I would combine my 50,000 with a very close friend or family member and make it 100,000. And I would invest in a small real estate project or investment that me and my brother could afford to do on our own, and hold that property as long as we can and have it appreciate.
Very cool. Adrian, thanks for playing the lightning round. Thank you for also being on the show. Now, where can the listeners reach out if they wanted to speak to you, know more about what you're doing? Where can they go?
Can call me at 416-938-2641. Executive Properties, IES, at rogers.com is my email. You can email me anytime and we can connect.
Awesome. And I always ask this for the very end. Any final last words of advice?
If you do one thing at all and you're going to invest in anything at all, invest in real estate. And
Awesome.
Forget and just let it build over time, and forget you even have it. Invest in real estate.
Adrian, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure getting to know you more, and thanks for all the insights.
Cheers. Have a great weekend.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larby. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?